Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'll introduce the panel members. I'm Marcel Larondo. I'll be chairing. Robert Belinkie and Richard Whitebread are coming to us via Zoom. Ryan Valderrama is our assessment department, our assessor today. And our administrative personnel today will be Jaswinder Kumar. We will be hearing applications for revision of assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to an application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with your board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after the applications have been heard and the board will deliberate in private to make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 to 10 on our docket today. Mr. Kumar, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Thanks. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Valderrama will be starting at 45 Carlton. If you would open it up. We're dealing with value today.
I believe so, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. When you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first property has a file number of 22-2719. It has a roll number of 12-092-608-000. It is located at 45 Carlton Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value for this property is $3,507,000. It is classified as residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building and 3 actual year built of 1928. It has an effective year built of 1978. It has 30 suites with 0 parking. It is zoned as downtown living with a land area of 10,864 square feet, a planned area of 7,256 square feet, and a basement area of 7,256 square feet. The gross floor area for this property is 29,020. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. The next page, page 4, is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 30 units or 30 suites with an average monthly rent per unit of $976.42. The gross potential rent is $351,511, has a vacancy rate of 4.7%, or $16,521. That's an effective gross income of $334,990, has an expense ratio of 47.13%, or $157,881. The net operating income is $177,109, applying the capitalization rate of 4.95%. The capitalized income is $3,577,960, or $3,578,000 rounded. The next page, page 5, are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 165 McDermott Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,219. The second one is located at 270 Broadway. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,058. The third one is located at 301 Broadway. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,042. And the last one is located at 207 Edmonton Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,238. Next page is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. The next page is the capitalization rate. The next two pages I will read through, Mr. Chair, and in the interest of time, I ask that these two pages will be applied in the succeeding we'll be dealing with today. If I may proceed, Mr. Chair.
You may proceed.
Thank you. On page 7 is the capitalization rates. A direct capitalization method is used to convert a property's single year of income into an indication of value by dividing the estimated net operating income by an appropriate capitalization rate. Capitalization rates can be derived from properties that have sold by dividing each property's net operating income by its sale price. For the 2023 general assessment, or using April 1st as 2021 as a reference date, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time-adjusted to April 1st, 2021. The assessed values produced by the application of these model-generated application or capitalization rates were prices and assessment to sale price ratios were calculated. The resulting ratio statistics for the assessment and taxation department's income-producing models, standards specified and set forth in the Standard on Ratio Studies as approved in April 2013 and published by the International Association of Assessing Officers, or IAAO. ATD's capitalization rates are further supported by comparison with real estate market reports from Colliers International, Canada, CBRE National Research, and Cushman and Wakefield. The following chart compares capitalization rates with the published rates by fitting ATD's rates into the property type categories used in these reports. ATD's property type classes are more comprehensive so that they cover every property type in the city. The 20th and 80th percentiles show the range of capitalization rates used by ATD for 60% of the parcels within the specific property type. In many cases, within the 20th and 80th percentiles, indicating the tenability of the capitalization rates derived by ATD. There is a multifamily section, second to the bottom. So all of them have a range of 4.8 to 5.6% for cap rates. And on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparables specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. So there are a few sales, Mr. Chair. The first one is located at 2390 McPhillips. It was sold on October 9th, 2020. It was sold for $19.4 million. It has 90 suites and a year built and effective age of 2015. and it translates to 215,556 per suite, and it has a calculated cap rate of 4.79%. The second one is located at 700 St. Mary's. It was sold on April 7th, 2020. $1,035,000, has 9 suites. It has a year built and effective age of 1961. This sale translates to $115,000 per suite. It has a calculated cap rate of 3.6%. The third one is located at 203 Bertrand. It was sold on June 14th, 2019 for $925,000. It has 9 suites with a year built and effective age of 1963. The sale translates to $102,778 per suite. It has a calculated cap rate of 4.77%. Next one is located at 555 Corridon. It was sold on November 26, 2018. It was sold for $1,575,000. It has 16 suites with a year built and effective age of 1955. And this sale translates to $98,438 per suite, and it has a calculated cap rate of 5.4%. Next one is located at 677 Maryland. It was sold on December 15, 2020. It was sold for $1 million. It has 32 suites with a year built of 1913 and effective age of 1972. This sale translates to about $75,000 per suite, and the calculated cap rate is 5.5%. The last sale is located at 32 Arden. It was sold on March 1st, 2019 for $2.875 million. It has 23 suites with year built of 1969 and effective age of 1984. This sale translates to about $125,000 per suite, and the calculated cap rate is 5.05%. On the next few pages is where the 2020 income and expense information is located. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Yes,
Mr.
I do.
Neufeld?
Yeah, yes, I do. Sorry, I was searching for the button here. On page, I believe it's going to be 4, was this valuation done by the model?
All the parameters are model-derived parameters, Mr. Chair.
And the cap rate of 4.95%, what is that based on? Is that based on a 1978 age?
Mr. Chair, there could be a lot of factors determining the cap rate. The model is or this is a model-derived capitalization rate, so there could be a lot of factors determining this cap rate, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and what would those factors be?
I'm not sure which ones are given weight, Mr. Chair. But usually it's more on age, location, size of the property, Mr. Chair, among others.
Just 1 second, I'm just writing. And the what would be the purpose for putting in on page 7 reports from organizations that actually sell properties? What would be the point of this?
As indicated in my blurb earlier, it's a comparison, Mr. Chair. It's the 3rd paragraph, I believe.
Well, for example, let me be more specific then. The Colliers report reports the lowest possible rate at 5%, but the city applies much lower. So why would you put in the Colliers report that refutes your own rates?
Again, as I've mentioned in the blurb as well, we have included the 60% of our parcels for each property type on this report, Mr. Chair. So there could be a lot of other model derived cap rates that were included in the 60% of the property type that we have in stock or in our inventory, Mr. Chair.
Has the city of Winnipeg been involved in the sale, directly involved in the sale or management of any of the properties that are in your study?
No.
And on page 8, you list some rates. Was the city involved in the sale of any of these?
No.
And how were these cap rates prepared? Were these done by the model or were they done by an assessor?
It was done in our department, and the process of how we calculated it, I believe, is the last paragraph of the blurb, Mr. Chair. So it's
And-
owner reported income and expense information, stabilizing it, and then the sale price, dividing it by the sale price.
Well, and we know how the process works. My question was having to do with preparation of it. Is there any particular assessor who would claim responsibility for doing these rates? Some have testified that they did it, and I'm just wondering if you know who did it.
It was calculated by an assessor in our department, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm asking, do you have the name of that assessor?
I don't see the point of the question, Mr. Chair.
Well, the points aren't for you. It's for the board and the taxpayer. Mr. Baracus has claimed responsibility for this. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, have you ever seen any of his workups?
I reviewed it. Yes, I have seen it. I just didn't include it in this evidence, Mr. Chair.
And why don't we have those to look at?
It's just a straightforward calculation, Mr. Chair. So the calculated NOI can just be calculated straight from the cap rate and the sale price of this cap rate evidence, Mr. Chair.
Well, that's not my question. Why can't we look at them?
We just include these ones. This is a standard evidence that we provide every time.
In the case of the two lowest cap rates, neither of their assessments is remotely close to the sale price. Is there any reason why they don't match up?
Again, these are actual sale prices, and assessments are model generated usually. And they are time adjusted as of April 1st, 2021. Or
Well,
to 2021.
Okay, but I'm going to introduce some rebuttal evidence to show that the assessments don't match the sale price. If they don't match the sale price, isn't there a credibility issue on the sale then? I mean, if the model, you're using these cap rates to support the model, yet the sale prices aren't supported by the model. Shouldn't that be a consideration when you're doing model rates? You go through the analysis and you look for anomalies and outliers.
Again, the processes are different. So again, the sales of these properties are of a specific date, and whereas the assessment is also as of a specific date.
The change in the effective year built, how was that done?
If there is a renovation or any changes in the property, it is just it was just calculated or determined, whoever does the effective age or the entry into the role.
Okay, but what was the reason for the change?
For the subject property, sorry.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, I was looking at the sales. Usually the reason for this is that there was a significant renovation or physical property. So I don't have the specifics of it, Mr. Chair.
So you haven't looked up the permits. You have no idea what why anyone would change the date. Then is that what you're saying?
No, I wasn't able to do that.
No, I happen to be looking at the permit, and I did send it in for rebuttal. There is an item on here, and I'm just checking if you knew about this, that the work was to repair, quote, rotten members. Were you aware that they have a decay issue in the building?
No, I'm not aware.
Well, those are my questions. Thank you.
Richard, Robert, do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Richard, do you have any questions?
Just a little bit of a follow-up on what Mr. Neufeld was doing. Ryan, have you inspected this property?
No, I was unable to.
You've never been in it?
No, never.
And I think you testified to Mr. Neufeld that the model identified the numbers on page 3, the calculations for this property.
On page 4, Mr. Chair, yes. It's model derived, yes.
4. My understanding, let me ask another question. So we have a 1928 building with an effective date of 78. You don't know why it's 1978. Is it fair to say that, and I know you have it inspected, but a 1928 structure would have the bones of a 1928 structure, the foundation, the roof, et cetera, et cetera. Is it fair to say that would be the case, and changes that you don't have permits for or haven't identified permits for would be more aesthetic in nature?
There's a possibility on both occasions, Mr. Chair. However, without specifics, we wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to determine if really structurally, if this is changed, or if there's a significant renovation or extensive renovation that was done on the property. Looking at just the effective years and actual and effective years, there could be, but other than that, I cannot assume anything on what was done.
Okay, so when you see a model set up like this, you have the ability to go in and adjust using your judgment, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Have you done that in this case?
I wasn't able to on this one. I just reviewed the property and the model, and it looks like it's almost pretty much fair in terms of the other in terms of all the parameters that were used, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and your 4.95 didn't seem unreasonable at the time you looked at this?
Yes,
building.
that's correct.
Sorry.
Yes, it looks reasonable for me.
It does, eh? Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you.
If we can go to your chart, Ryan, on page 7.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
When we're looking at the 20 percentile and 80th percentile, what would the floor actually be on that, or and the ceiling for those two rates?
Oh, you mean, Mr. Chair, if I may clarify, lower than the 20th percentile and higher than the 80th percentile?
Correct.
I'm not sure. I don't have that information. I don't know.
But the information is available to you, is it not?
I just wasn't able to read through the information or get the information with regard to that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, because looking at Colliers and CBR and Cushman, they've got highs in the 6%, 7.6% is the high. Your high is at 5.6. Their lows at their low is showing at 5, but you're showing at 4.8. Oh, I'm wondering if you're actually have some lower. Well, you would have some lower than the 20 percentile. Correct?
Most likely, yes. It would be lower than 4.8.
Yeah.
Beyond 20th
and
20th percentile.
Yeah, and you'd also have some higher than the 5.6 after the 80th percentile, correct?
Yes, above 80th percentile. Most likely.
So what would fall into that area of 5.6 and greater? Which type of building?
Again, I'm not sure. It's more of the 20th and 80th percentile is more the 60% of the parcels that we have in here between 4.8 to 5.6. So I'm not sure what type of properties fall beyond 20th and 80th percentile.
So where would this property fall?
It's on the lower end of the 20th and 80th percentile at 4.95%.
For the reasons of?
Looking at just the range of 4.8 to 5.6, 4.95 is towards the lower range of the band, Mr. Chair.
Okay, because now if I go to your sales that you had prepared, you've got a building on Maryland, 1913 to 1972. That one's coming in at a 5.5%.
Correct,
Mr.
Mr.
When
Chair.
you did the numbers on it.
Chair. And the process on this one, if I may, is direct calculation of the stabilized owner reported income and expense divided by the sale. Whereas our cap rate is a model derived cap rate.
But what I'm saying is, would this one not be more accurate than the model?
Again, Mr. Chair, this is as of the sale date of the of Maryland. We are also considering April 1st. So it could be different process or different there could be other things also that the model is factoring in. That's why it's a 4.95% cap rate.
But you said these were adjusted to 2021, did you not?
Oh, the sales?
Yes.
No, they weren't. They're exact. They're as of the sale price and the sale date.
So maybe we shouldn't be using those then, if they're not 21. Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's not that, Mr. Chair. It's more of we're trying to look at the range of what we have presented between 4.8 to 5.6, and we are just saying that there are some sales that are also within the ballpark of our 20th to 80th percentile, Mr. Chair, and there's also indicated here that these are not for the purpose of really it's in here just they're not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so what are they meant to be then?
Again, it's more of, if we're looking at the range here that we have on page 7, it seems like we have it at 4.8 to 5.6, and some sales that we have attached here on page 8, it seems like it's going between that range as well, just with the sale, with an exception of St. Mary's, which is at 3.6%. So almost all of the other sales fall between 4.8 to 5.6. Of course, I mean, rounded up for McPhillips and Bertrand. So there are some sales that support the 4.8. There are some sales that support the 5 of our model derived cap rates, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. They go anywhere from 4.8 to 5.74, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need for now, Brian. Thank you very much. We'll move on to your presentation, Mr. Neufeld, and you can do your presentation after the presentation has been done and the questions have been asked. We'll go into your rebuttal, please.
Okay.
Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, I know. I just lost it here. I found it. Physically, I think the issue with the building is you'll note that we made a note of the deferred maintenance, and honestly, I just found the permits today, and I'm trying to get feedback from ownership, and it's in the rebuttal, but it's not a repair issue. I mean, sorry, it's not a renovation issue; it's a repair issue. There were windows replaced. That was the only renovation done. The rest of it was all repair, including they called rotting members. So that would be a structural repair. And the drywall had to be replaced to fire rated. So this would have been 1928 construction, plaster on lath. So that's code and repair. Nothing that's going to make show a real improvement in value or the.
It's me.
Okay. How about now?
I hear him fine.
It's me.
I can't hear you, Marcel.
That's the bad. We
I'm
win-win
gonna-
situation.
It was me that, I figured it out. I'll shut off my headphones. I'll have to go live. Okay, go.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yeah, and okay. Essentially, there was one upgrade, which were the windows, and the rest of it was repair. Building has had a fairly serious deferred maintenance issue that they're coping with. Now, the statement for the last year before the mailer indicated, I think the NOI was about 187, but the previous 6 years of statements, which we have, were up and down. And in this case, we looked at we had a difficult time with stabilizing the repair costs because they were up every year. So we just chose to go with the assessor's model, and that's just the path of least resistance that we chose. So focusing on the capitalization rate, the report that the assessor applies and that in theirs but does not follow is on our page 22, and we're showing the lowest possible cap rate for multifamily at 5% and a range up to 6%. These are for grade A and B buildings. Definitions are on page 23. The subject would be considered a miscellaneous grade, which is the grade below D, because of the age and the condition issues, and the desirability of the downtown location for a site without parking is, even though you don't need parking downtown by code, it's good to have parking. So it would be much below this grade that we track. We don't track buildings like this, but we do use the Collier's rate to start on a base rate and then look at the differences. And going through that on page 2, the issues are that word industrial. That's nothing. There's no deduction for that. That's just a typo. That doesn't impact. There is no parking. Even though it's downtown, you don't legally need parking. If you have parking, you can get a better rent. Doesn't matter where you are in Winnipeg. The building issues, we don't do an effective year built. We look at the actual year and then we look at quality and condition. So actual year and the foundation, the frame, the envelope, except for the windows, it's original. So it's a 0. So that's 0.2 of a point. Quality is an issue to do with it's the workmanship and material that went into this in 1928 surpass anything we see today. But the problem on the quality side is we cannot replace that. So if you do have a repair problem, for example, the drywall in this case, you can't fix plaster on lath, even if it met code, which it doesn't. I would think we have. Well, I know we would have a hard time finding a tradesman who could actually do that application. You go to drywall, and that's one of the things we're thinking about on condition. In quality. On condition, the person who wrote this hadn't looked at the permit. I would have gone much lower than that. I'm particularly sensitive to rotting members, as the permit says. That's an indication of moisture damage. And if you have moisture damage, it's I want to be very sensitive. I hope no one is ill, but it's the cancer of buildings. It doesn't go away. I'm personally dealing with my own house with the same situation, and it's been a 6-year struggle. It's difficult. So if I was doing this, knowing this today, I wouldn't have capped it at this rate. Now, what I'm waiting for is just an answer from the owner as to if he has a structural report on this. I would, and we never asked for it. So I can't change it without knowing if he's got a structural report. So I'm leaving in at 6.25 in the value indicated, subject to a structural report. If he gets that to us before our appeal time runs out, we would definitely be looking for a rate in probably the 8 or 9%, or get an estimate of costs and scope of damage, and then deduct it from value. But as I said, I have nothing to show you today, and I don't assume. So we are leaving it as it is, $2,834,000, and then I have some rebuttal. That's it.
Any questions, Ryan?
Yeah, just a quick one, Mr. Chair. Capitalization rates, do you have any basis on the 6.25%?
Well, as I mentioned, we use the Collier's cap rate schedule to do it. We have numerous sales. I have entered some of them as rebuttal evidence, but we kind of missed the deadline on them. There are about 10 sales that we had. We only got them in September, and so they were rather late for the first cut, and we've missed them. However, these sales went into the model, our model, actual sales, and this was also done in consultation with the people who sold the properties, who did these rates, 5 to 6% for good buildings, higher for everything else. So that's what we're saying.
I have no further questions for now, Mr. Chair.
Richard, any questions?
I have none.
Robert, any questions?
This may be pertinent, but we've talked about the cap rate from Mr. Neufeld. What is there something you need to check about the building age that's not effective as pointed out by the assessor, or should it be some left as it is?
Well, again, this was our fault for not having this information ready. Yes, I want an engineering report. I've asked the owner for one, and if he doesn't get it to me before the end of this hearing, I can't talk about it. The concept of water damage is, how do I say it, a bit of a taboo. You don't talk about it. You don't assume anything on that until you look at the engineer's report. But we see a concern for it. The 6.25 we put in is ignoring whether it exists or not. If it exists, then we would want to hire. I can't do it within this hearing. So what I'm going to have to end up doing is look at any engineering report he sends and make the decision after this hearing as to whether or not we proceed further. As of right now, if there's no damage, or if the damage has been contained, the 6.25% is adequate. If there's more coming, then it's not. And there's also the concept of, well, we call it market resistance to detrimental conditions. They used to call it stigma. We don't use that word anymore. But the point is, if at one point in your past you've had moisture damage, then the market doesn't like it because they think it can come back even though you're clean. Again, I have nothing definite to show you. This was valued on the basis of no damage. And I just found out now. So
okay, no, that answers my question, Mr. Neufeld. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Neufeld, I've got no questions for you, but you said you had some rebuttal. Is it in written form or is it verbal?
no, there's 3 PDF documents that I sent in, and I think the secretary has acknowledged receipt.
It's in the
Yeah, I'm
folder.
just looking. Where are they, Jazz?
Yeah, it's in the folder, Mr. Chair. They are labeled as applicant rebuttal, applicant cap city cap rates, and cap rebuttal 5.
Do you guys have them on yours?
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, I seem to be missing them on my. When did they go up? When
Uh,
did you put them?
maybe 10 minutes before.
Okay, I loaded mine earlier. That's why. Okay, so I got to go out of here to find it. I'm sorry.
They went up about 24 minutes ago.
Yeah, I'd already loaded all of my stuff, so I got to go back and find it. Applicants. Applicants rebuttal, is that the one?
Yeah, that's for the particular file we are hearing now, and there's two other items.
Okay, let's deal with them now. I've got them.
Yeah, I'm going to
Go
go
ahead,
over
Mr.
these.
Newfeld.
I'm going to go over these quickly, and I anticipate there may be some concern that they're new evidence. They're not. I believe I've laid the foundation for all of these during the cross-examination. The first one was the permits, 45 Carlton permits, and I asked the assessor, did he know about them? So here they are, all the permits that have been taken out, and I think you've heard all the evidence. It's just background. Rotten members. I've never seen that before. That's either a bad band or a 17th century disease. The cap rebuttal 5 is in response to the 5 cap 5, 6, whatever cap rates that the city brought forward that they had calculated, and the first part of that, page 1 and 2, is just the relationship between lending and the cap rate, and then there's a definition, which I think is quite important, page 4. In red, the price represents normal consideration unaffected by special or creative financing. Then there's the Municipal Assessment Act definition of value to remind us all. This operating expenses might come back later, but for this particular one, I might refer to it if it comes up. You never know. But then I'm moving on to page 19. So these are the properties that the assessor has left in. Now, when they first published their report, there were 3 more properties in there that they ended up taking out because they discovered that there were issues with them, and give them credit for reacting. But page 20, 2390 McPhillips, this is a new luxury, apparently, well, I don't like that word, but we'll call it luxury development. And it was sold for, as the assessor said, 19 million. And you can see that the current assessment is 17 million. So if you're going to use 19.4 was the sale, if you're going to use something and say, I like the cap, it should be used, then you should like the sale and you should input it on the property, because they're talking about supporting the model. They're not talking about finding market value. It says there, this is to support the model. Well, it doesn't support the model. If they don't believe the sale in itself, they undermine their own credibility. The second issue with this one is it's sold to a REIT, and you can see on the page 20, they're targeting a 4.15% annual yield because they're a REIT. That's an investment value. It's not a market value. That falls under the category of creative financing. The next one on page 22, assessment is 860,000, whereas they report the sale at 1,035,000. Again, if you don't believe the sale, then you can't use it. 203 Bertrand was appraised valued by several people. The listing agent on page the listing is on page 24. he's offering it with his cap of 7.44%. That's what it was listed at. Now, Colliers did an analysis of this because we were involved in the sale, and we came at 5.37%, but that's a pre-renovation state. So it was bought as a project building. Because by 2021, they're now advertising it as recently remodeled. So there's no weight on that, because the correct cap rate for a renovation sale would be take the purchase price, take the cost of renovations, and then use the projected income after renovations. That's the only true cap you can find. So it was a project building. The next one, 555 Corridon, couldn't find anything about it. It's a Globe property. I have nothing to say now. The next one is Maryland, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I've appraised this for one of the times it came up, and it's bounced up and down an awful lot. There's been sales, resales, and in 2010 it was sold as a project building, and then in 2014, 2.6 million, and then for some reason it sold for 2.4 million 6 years later. So we have some listings on it from 14 and from the withdrawn one, which was February 14th, 2020, and they all indicate the one that is current. They're saying a projected net income of 175,000. So the calculation on that is on the asking was really 7.29%. The 2014 listing would say 7.9%. But the big factor on this, they also say that they have CMHC financing, which is below market rates, which is creative financing. So without the CMHC financing, the cap rate's going to be higher. Now, everyone says, oh, you don't take financing into effect. You do. If you have low creative financing, like CMHC, and it's easy to get, you got to pay a little bit for it up front, but the rates are great. You have to calculate it. And I've actually provided the calculations on how that's to be done on page 40 and 41. And you do take it into effect when you note. Now, if we're talking about a quarter point difference between bank to bank, no, that's not an issue. It's when you take the financing. And no, not everybody can get CMHC. There are guidelines for it. For example, I know I couldn't get it on an apartment block. You have to be a professional with 5 years of experience. So that one was a bit doubtful. As to Arden, I've been trying to ask. I know some people. This is an Ash property, and they also own the adjoining property, 28 Arden. That's what we're saying there. So I was trying to track down to see if this is an assemblage sale of some sort. I don't have the answer yet, but the point is, just normal review should catch these things, and you should be able to at least try to explain these to, I've given you the verification of sales on page 35. It's by the International Association of Assessing Officers. If you're going to use a sale and it's going to be used as evidence, you don't read a piece of paper and slap a number out. You go and call somebody and look these things up, which is what I did. And then you report them. You report your assumptions. So I just think that the whole analysis is rather weak, which then takes me into my last piece of information. And the foundation for this was established by asking who prepared these. This is called city cap rates. And these were given to our office by Mr. Baracus, who also did the workups. And you know, I very much like that he was open and he shared these. This is what we should be doing at these hearings, so we get an idea. I just wanted to show you out his errors on his methodology, and I'm going through it real quick. The first one, 1000 Archibald. You'll notice that on his first line on income, it jumps from 165,000 to 187,000. Go down and look at maintenance and repair. 10,000 one year, jumps to 26,000, back to 11. We have an above guideline increase. That's not an assumption. That anyone who looks at this says this is what happened. You got an above guideline increase, and then on your final year, there's no indication if the above guideline came in halfway through the year, the beginning of the year, or the end of the year. The history is lacking. And because there was a significant increase, and that's $20,000 on 168,000, that's 13% increase. That one shouldn't be used without more detail. The other problems, the maintenance and repair was averaged and stabilized. Well, you got an above guideline increase. You know it should not be stabilized like that way. Maybe at $10,000. So we have pushing the expense side. The other major one, which will be on every single one I'm showing you, is look at the management cost adjustments. Now, they were 7,000, 7,000, 8,000. He decided it was 9,000 because it should be 5%. Well, why? Under what basis? Are you telling the apartment owners, don't be economical, spend more money on your management? No, it is what it is. 5% is a great guideline, but unless you can prove there's something mismanaged here, you don't change it. The second one was actually done by Altus, and you'll note the same thing there, is that they were spending, it's really hard to read, about 50,000 a year for management, and whoever did this workup was given to me by the city to justify 5%. Changed the management to 80,000, 81,000. Well, why? Now, one of the things people always miss is the line 28, wages and benefits. Wages and benefits plus management fee, if they're over 5%, someone's making a mistake here. So in this case, they've actually gone to 8% management fee, and that's what's throwing that off. And then that's the same thing on La Vérendrye. La Vérendrye was actually blatant. Management fees were $8,000, and then they changed the way they did it and separated management from wages, and it was $8,000, and then the assessor came and stabilized $3,300, changed it to $4,400. Well, he just missed the lines, and that's the same issue with the last one, 111 Stadacona. You know, they could have actually used this as a cap if they had worked it out, but the management line, if you'll note that in 2017 they shifted their management from the same concept. They moved the wages and benefits. Previous years were 0, and then they became 8,000. But by doing this, they took the 27,000 they were spending on management and changed it to 22. So the assessor, so in this year, the last year, they were spending 30,000 on management. So the assessor changed it to 38,000. And that's the mistakes that they make when they the two major ones are missing the above guideline increases. And for example, in this one, you'll note it went from 540,000 to 560,000. I'm really rounding numbers here, but that's a jump that exceeds RTV. So you should be looking to see if that's a stabilized rate. And was it done halfway through the year or end of the year, beginning of the year? Because it's going to show. So this would, the buyer who's looking at this would get a prospectus that showed as of March 7th, 2018, here is my monthly rent. It works out to, it could be 580,000 because the 559 was a mid-year rent change. You can see that because the way it's escalated. So I'm not making assumptions. That this is what I'm telling you. There's errors here, and I'm suggesting I know what they are. But this is why we have these cap rates that they put forward and say, well, we've got 4% rates. Well, they don't. They're massaging the numbers. It has. That's my rebuttal. Thank you.
Ryan, do you have any questions of Mr. Neufeld on that?
On the rebuttal, applicant rebuttal.
Yes.
These are the permits, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes.
And the status for all of them are all closed, correct?
Yes.
And does that mean that it was inspected and it was done?
No,
All of the
that means
permits?
it varies on the type of permit. For example, the envelope and the structural permit would be based on the work done. An electrical permit gets a little more complicated, where they go through the entire building and they won't just look at what you've done; they will look at the rest of it. But the inspector was satisfied that it met code.
And with regard to the rotten members, so it was closed. The permit was closed, correct?
The permit to replace 9
New
balconies
windows.
on foundations was closed.
And how about the replacement of rotten members? Work includes new windows and replacement of rotten members. I think the second to the last. It says closed, right?
Yeah. Those, and I'm not disputing that the windows were all done, but there are 30 units, and they replaced balcony members on 9 of them.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions, Richard? Richard? Is he muted?
Sorry about that. I have none.
No questions? Is that what you
No questions. Thank you.
said? Okay. Robert, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude that matter. And we'll move on to the next one. And that'll be on 26 Roslyn Road. Come on. Number 2. When you are ready, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the next property, we have a file number of 22-2684. The roll number for this property is 032-435000. It is located at 26 Roslyn Road. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value for the property is $1,565,000. The property is classified as residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building and 3 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1958. It has 21 suites with 19 outdoor parking. It is zoned as a residential multifamily with a land area of 11,829 square feet, a planned area of 4,862 square feet, basement area of 3,734 square feet, a gross floor area of 18,320 square feet. On the next page 3 is the aerial photo. And on the next page, page 4, is the income valuation summary. Yeah, there are 21 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $799.44. The gross potential rent for the property is $201,459. It has a vacancy rate of 3.2%, which is $6,447. Has an effective gross income of $195,012. Has an expense ratio of 53.45%, or $104,234. The net operating income comes down to $90,778. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.8, capitalized income is $1,565,138 or $1,565,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 393 River Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $825. Second one is located at 100 Roslyn Road. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $924. Third one is located at 112 River Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $873. The last one is located at 304 Stradbrook Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $872. Next page is the map of the subject comparable rents. Page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And beginning of page 9 up to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense mailer that we received in our department. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, Mr. Neufeld?
No, I'm just going to assume that any debate we've undertaken already would carry forward, save us some time. So just news questions. Page 4, was this all done by the model?
Yes, these are the parameters are all model parameters.
And is there a neighborhood influence on this one?
I don't have that information in this evidence, Mr. Chair, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Where would you have the location factors? Is this in here at all?
I don't have that information.
Oh, like on the city's webpage, you have location factors, don't you? But you don't put them in the reports. I just wanted to just double check something here.
No, there's none in my report, in my evidence, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So the rent, just looking at the rent chart here on page 5, the $7.99 on the subject is this is what the model applied, correct?
That's correct.
And the rents that are listed, comparables 1 to 4, what part of the questionnaire did they come from?
They were calculated based on the actuals, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I'm just wanted to check this because on page 11, of course, a rent roll is listed on the subject property, which would indicate a higher rate. Is this where you would take it from, page 11, from these other comparables? Or would you take it from the number that this one has on page 9?
For page 5, all of the red comparables, those average monthly rent per unit, they are all from, they were all averaged depending on how many units there are. So these are the actuals from the income and expense mailers.
Okay, why I'm asking is to determine if you're using the residential tenancy branch registered rent or the actuals.
We are using the income and expense mailers on this one.
Yeah, well, but the number that we see on page 11, from the form marked, I don't know what this form is called, the suite rental income category, or from the statement under annual income received. Do you know for sure?
Either one, they're both actuals, so it's an average rent per unit.
Okay, those are my only questions.
Robert, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Richard, do you have any questions?
So I just want to make sure I understand this. Page 11, the mailer indicates $871 to $942 a month for 22 one-bedroom apartments. Is that correct, Ryan?
That's the reported that was sent to us.
Yeah. So can you explain how the model then comes up with $799? That's the puzzle for me.
No, it's a model generated parameter. So sure how the $799 and some cents were calculated, Mr. Chair.
But it is about $150 a month less than the actuals. Okay. And you don't understand that.
It's a model, so yeah.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. So looking at his actuals that they gave, Ryan, on page 9, his NOI was at 81. Was it 81,639?
Looks like it is 81,639.
Was there any problems with any of his lines that you had to correct? You never even looked at these.
None. I don't see any irregularities in this reported income and expense mailer.
So it's about $9,000, $8,000 off from your NOI, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Marcel,
Yes.
you have some
Richard?
feedback coming. Have you got a speaker and a phone on or something?
Nope.
Ryan, you had feedback
Maybe
as
shut these
well.
off.
No, I don't have any speakers with me.
That's fine. It's Marcel then. Can you just test, Marcel?
Okay, I'll try it. The testing on the speaker, see if it's working.
That's better now. Okay. I have no echo.
Okay. That could be because I was facing away from the speaker at the time
Okay.
when I was reading this chart with my head sideways. Thank you, Ryan. I've got no further questions on that. Mr. Neufeld, if you want to make your presentation, please.
Yes, thank you. The subject property, I mean, the two differences obviously is the income and the capitalization. We're using the actual income, and just for clarification, page 3 is the statement, and when the owner gets requested to submit his rent rolls, as I was pointing out in the assessor's page 11, what they do is they produce the RTB, Residential Tenancies Branch, registered rental rate. That is not the actual rate. That is what they are permitted to change it to because of if they've had any sort of above guideline increase problem. For example, if the property taxes went up, they could then request for an increase, and then they decide whether or not the market can bear it. But the number that they're earning is what they believe the market can bear. They've been managing properties in Winnipeg since 1912. So I would suggest that the assessor model would be superseded by their model on historical grounds. However, this is the income. And what we did when we prepared this is we looked at 3 years of income, 3 years of costs, took the last year of income, and you can tell that they did have some above guideline increases because that exceeds the 1% that was permitted for those years. And then the expenses vary. They're not, expenses are never consistent. We took the average, and that's an NOI of 74,000 for the valuation. For capitalization rates, the subject property is I'm sorry, I'm getting interference and I can't turn it off. Okay, it went away. They make us put all sorts of stuff on our computers that I can't turn off. The capitalization, again, we looked at the Collier's rates, and we've given you some discussion of general rates. The mistaken concept of this building as being on Roslyn Road is that it's a nice property, and it's not on the river, and it's 1 bedrooms. What we are would be I see as a concern, not a major concern, is that it's not a renovation project because it lacks the larger units which you could get, and that these are just minor issues. And the parking stalls, it's a few under what it's supposed to be. 21 units requires 26 stalls. It has 19. It's not in downtown, so it doesn't need to conform to bylaw, so it's a legal non-conforming use. The age is 1958. Quality condition is average. Really nothing special, nothing spectacular. It's been performing at its level since 1958. Nothing special. The model in particular seems to have a hate for this property. And I don't know how the model works, but I would put 60 years of performance ahead of the model. This is where it's been at. That's my presentation.
Ryan, do you have any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Richard, do you have any questions?
I have none.
Robert, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, can you, what on your page 1 are you doing an average of 3 years? Why would you not use the last 20?
The averaging? No, we're averaging expenses only, and we're using final year of income 2020 for value, for revenue, I mean.
No, but you averaged out the NOIs as well.
What we did do to do the NOI is we used the last year of income because it's been growing, and then an average of expenses, just to account for different weather, cold weather, higher expenses. These are all gross buildings, and if there were any repairs required. So in this case, the 3-year average was fairly consistent. I have a 15-year average on it, and it's a consistent performer at this level.
Okay, I've got no further questions. We'll move on. Anything in summation, gentlemen?
Nope.
I have none.
None. Thank you very much. Conclude that matter for now. We'll move on to 51 Roslyn Road, please. 51. When you are ready, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next
Mr.
property.
Chairman, just I don't want to interrupt, but I think that we might want to confirm this. What's the roll number? I mean, sorry, the file number.
223083.
3083. Yeah, it's being demolished and rebuilt. I imagine construction is underway right now on it. I don't see a point in proceeding.
Okay, we should still read it on.
Yeah, okay.
Ryan, you want to read it on, please?
Page 1, Mr. Chair, if I may. Only just of page 1, Mr. Chair.
That's correct.
Okay. Next property is the file number of 22-3083. The roll number is 12032.
Somebody have a YouTube on out there?
I think nothing here.
We're getting a feedback.
When Ryan talks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably from a speaker or something.
Okay. Try it again, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The roll number, or I'll try again. So the file number is 22-3083. The roll number is 12032492-200. It is located at 51 Roslyn Road. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $1,350,000. Property is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. It is a residential apartment with 1 building, an actual and effective year built of 1952, has 25 suites with 20 outdoor parking, a zoning of residential multifamily with a land area of 22,712 square feet, a planned area of 4,238 square feet, and a gross floor area of 14,495 square feet. That's the page 1 of my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ryan. And Mr. Neufeld, you wanted to just get this confirmed because of the reasons that you stated earlier?
Yeah, and I'm just quickly calling up to the decision-making site because there was an application for rezoning. I just wanted to double check the dates on this. The city system is going slow. I should have done this earlier. I should have done a lot of things earlier. Okay, sorry, it just popped up here. September 22 minutes. Okay, it's yeah, zoning received first reading and was sent to second and third reading. So that would mean that's yeah. I had was aware that construction was being targeted for the fall of 2022. I haven't looked at it lately, so let's confirm it, please.
Okay, any problem with that, Brian?
No, I haven't.
Gentlemen, any questions on that?
I have none.
Robert?
Are we deleting this one?
No,
Drawing this?
we will deal with it at the end, but they're asking for confirmation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to 383 Gertrude next, please. Gentlemen, if you want to pull up your files. You guys must be quicker than me or something. Three, 8, 3 Gertrude. When you're ready, Ryan.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property is a file number of 22-3078. It has a roll number of 12-021-212-100. It is located at 383 Gertrude Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using April 1st, 2021 as the reference date. The assessed value for the property is $4,854,000. It is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 2 stories, an actual year built of 1968 and an effective year built of 1973. It has 42 suites with 32 outdoor. It is zoned as residential multifamily. It has a land area of 26,958 square feet, a planned area of 12,496 square feet, a basement area of 12,336 square feet, a gross floor area of 37,328 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 42 total number of units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,018.45. The gross potential rent is $513,299. The vacancy rate is 3.2% or $16,426. The effective gross income is $496,873. The expense ratio is 44.8%. Or $222,599. The net operating income comes down to $279,274. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.65%, the capitalized income is $4,854,407, or $4,054,000. Next page, page 5, is the rent comparable chart. The first one is located at 333 Stradbrook Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,087. The second one is located at 43 Roslyn Road. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,143. The third one is located at 859 Grosvenor Avenue. Average monthly rent per unit of $1,155. And the last one is located at 391 Gertrude Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,020. Next page is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rate chart, and on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And beginning of page 9 to page 15 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes. Page, I guess it's always page 4. This valuation was done by the model. Is that correct?
Yes, these are all model parameters, correct.
And how did the effective year get changed from 68 to 73?
Just basing on the years or on the numbers themselves, there must have been a renovation that was done on this one, or a change in the property, but I don't have the permits with me, so I don't know the particulars of it.
I'm looking at the permits now. I'm just wondering, let's see, 42 new data jacks, and electrical service went from 400 to 800 amps. How does that change the date, the effective year?
Again, I'm not sure. It's an effective age, so I'm not sure how it got changed to 1973.
Okay. And I noticed that there's no income and expense form here. I see that the note on page 9 says see attached, but you didn't provide the attachment.
These are all the attachments that were included.
I have a copy of the submission I'm looking at, and I'm just kind of wondering if you didn't get anything else, any other the actual incomes listed.
I just attached everything that I saw, so it may have been missed or not, but these are the ones that I have here.
Oh, okay. No, if it's I mean, I just clarify it was missed, and as long as we are both aware that that was the case. I'm
not sure where it went, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. I see it. So, yeah, because I get copied on all these. Okay. Now, on I'm all over the board here. Sorry about that. I think I have a question on one of your comparables. 391 Gertrude. Do you know anything about that building?
No, I don't.
Well, it's got 42 units. It's effective year 1973. Floor area is 300 square feet difference in the subject. You're aware that it was what I don't know what they call it, sister, brother, sibling property to this one?
Just based on the map, it looks like they are in the same street, on the same street, and on the same in the same vicinity.
Now that one, it was listing at $1,020 for rent. You're aware that that one was substantially renovated?
No, I'm.
Okay, those are my only questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Richard, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Robert?
No question. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've got no questions. Mr. Neufeld, with your presentation.
Thank you. So in this particular case, I was asking the question about this rent roll and about the income because we have kind of a sketchy one ourselves. We have a great deal of experience in this building, so I do know something about it. But we were relying on the assessor's workup because in past years, it's always been within a few $1,000s. And the statement of income and expense we couldn't find for 2020. That's honestly what we did. But over the years, it's historically performed very close to the model on revenue and expenses. The difference is capitalization. As you heard me indicate, there was a electrical panel upgrade and data jacks with permits taken out. Now, the electrical panel upgrade with 400 to 800 amps is obvious what it is. The owner has downloaded the heating problem from boiler to baseboard in the units, and that is why 44% expense ratio rather than 50%, because it's now the tenants pay for them themselves. As far as capitalization is concerned, there's nothing in the building that's special. It's located. Gertrude at this point is between Donald and Osborne, right across, I believe, from the paint factory in that neighborhood, and behind what used to be the Plaza Hotel. It's on the cap side, its deficiencies would be the parking is below standard. We list 19 stalls. The assessor lists 32, but there are only 41. There are 41 units, so it is below grade. And I think what we had tried to do is count the stalls at the back on the lane. It's still below. Code is 1.4 stalls per unit in the suburbs. So what it means is, as a candidate for renovation or upgrading, that if you don't have adequate parking, you're not standing as good a chance for having an upside on your income. And upside in income is the buzzword for every apartment. Focus on, is there an upside? So it's limited, and the one bedroom's limited as well. Age of construction 1968, and quality and condition. The beautiful remodeling on this, I went by it when Joel was doing it. Slapped a coat of acrylic paint on the outside. I don't think that counts for anything. And then he upgraded his panels. So it's fairly basic. 6%. This slap puts it in our Collier's range. At the top end of the range, which we would say is a B. This isn't a B, it's a C at some point in the C range. I haven't been in it for quite a few years, so I can't give you an idea of how I would rate it. When I looked at it a while back, I was thinking like C minus, and these are just subjective numbers. I just want to put it in the spectrum properly. So we put it at the top end of the Collier's AB list, which is probably giving it the benefit of the doubt. That's my presentation.
Any questions, Ryan?
I have no new questions, Mr. Chair.
Richard, any questions?
None, thank you.
Robert, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude that matter. We'll move on to 510 Burnell. Gentlemen, if you want to pull them up. When you're ready, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-3861. It has a roll number of 030 086-100. It is located at 510 Burnell Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. With a reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value is $2,485,000. It is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 2 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1969. It has 28 suites with 26 outdoor parking. It is zoned as residential 2 family. It has a land area of 19,941 square feet, a plan area of 8,762 square feet, a basement area of 8,762 square feet, and a gross floor area of 26,286 square feet. And on page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 28 units with average monthly rent per unit of $881.13. It has a gross potential rent of $296,060. Has a vacancy rate of 3.2% or $9,474. It has an effective gross income of $286,586. Expense ratio is 51.44% or $147,420. The net operating income comes down to $139,166. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.6%, the capitalized income is $2,485,107 or $2,485,000 rounded. And the next page, page 5, are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 450. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $850.
Who's got the
The second
speakers
one.
that are doing? Who's got the speakers that are back?
It's with Mr. Valderrama, I think. Something's wrong, Ryan, with your system. Some of the mics are on, maybe.
On whose
No,
system?
I only
Ryan?
have one
Or
mic on.
assessor.
I'm only hearing it with Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me try. Let's see. How about now? I think it should be.
That's clearer now. Let's try it and see what happens.
Okay.
You're in the line of questions.
Yeah, I don't have any speakers with me, Mr. Chair. I do have a headset, so I'm not sure if that's interfering, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
On page 5, I believe I'm on the current comparables.
Yes.
First, the second one, I think I'm on the second one. The second one is located at 301 Victor Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $900. And the third one is located at 209 Furby Street. Average monthly rent per unit of $880. And the last one is located at 520 Burnell Street. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $900. On the next page, page 6, is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And beginning of page up to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Neufeld, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I do. Page 4, done by the model.
Yes, page 4 is the model derived parameters.
And on page 2, you report a sale. Now, this property was at one point on the list of properties that was now been reduced. I'm talking to your page 8. This was once one of the ones for presentation. Do you know why it was removed? Why the sale was considered invalid?
On which one? On page 8?
Well, when in September, when the appeal started, this was listed as a cap rate sale. And in your list that is on page 8, and then it was removed. Now it was deemed to be a non-valid sale for market value. Do you know anything about that?
No, it wasn't removed because of that reason. I'm not sure what the reasoning was.
Oh, I know what the reason was. I was the one who got to help push it to get removed, but I know that it was on the list, but it's not considered a market sale, is it?
I am not sure if it's considered market sale or not. So
Okay.
it was removed for whatever reason.
All right. And I guess sorry, just one quick question I just wanted to see. So your NOI 139 and the mailer indicates 62,000. Was there any consideration given to their actual performance?
No, I just went with the model on this one, Mr. Chair.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Richard, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Robert?
No questions.
Good. Let's move on to your presentation, Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, thank you. So the property was involved in a sale, but it was a non-arm's length transaction. Colliers actually helped facilitate the sale. The property had been owned by an estate for several years, and Smith Agency were the supposed to the trustees, and they ended up purchasing it from the estate once probate had been done. And have been in care and control of it for quite some time because there was a lengthy probate process. So it was not met arm's length, and it also had what they call creative financing, because they were able to secure a CMHC loan at a very good time, like a couple of days before the rates went skyrocketing. So they got a 1.6% mortgage on it, which helped with it, and as opposed to 3.75, which was the norm. So for those reasons, so we met with the assessors, and they knew that they were quite convinced that it shouldn't be listed as a valid sale due to the relationship. On page 1 is an overhead view of it, and the red dots on the subject, and the other building in the picture is 520 Burnell. So today is going to be the day of sister or brother properties, whatever name we want to give to them. They're twins, different ownership. You'll notice that 520 has got their, I think that's exhaust ducting redone on the roof, and 510, our subject, is vintage. And that's just an indication of the limbo it was in. There was no real reason to spend money. The workup we've done on page 1 actually came from the broker who calculated the sale. This was the calculation of NOI for the sale, and that's why it's rather truncated, because we had, obviously performance. No, sorry, it was the year before the sale. Yeah, that's the one they ended up using. Sorry, because the assessor has a more recent one, but there was my memory's failing me here. Okay, I'm going to start this over. The year immediately preceding the sale, there was a lot of repair, deferred maintenance fixed, and so that's why the assessor's statement had 62,000 in NOI. We just used the year prior to sale for stabilizing. And sorry, it was not the one that the sale was based on. So on that basis, we're not very much different from the model by $7,000, and then the difference would be the rate of capitalization. The issues on this property is that, as in a nutshell, the person who wrote this up wasn't aware of all the factors, but it's just due for a lot of deferred maintenance workup. And so there'll be some higher than typical repair and maintenance costs over the coming years. And that's the main issue with it. It's would be classified as a D building. And if you look at the Colliers scale, that's based on the condition. That puts it above 6%. That's my presentation.
Questions, Ryan?
I have no new questions, Mr. Chair.
Richard, do you have any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Robert, do you have any?
No questions, thank you.
And then that will conclude that matter. We're just moving along. We're going to move to 1095. Whatever.
Mr. Chair, may I request for a break or a recess? Okay.
I think you could do that. We're going to take a 5-minute. Well, we'll make it 6 or 7 minutes, okay?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. Ryan, we're going to be dealing with 1095 rollover. When you are ready, you can read it on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-2704. It has a roll number of 13-012-413-500. The property is located at 1095 Wolver Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $1,959,000. Property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 2 stories, actual year built and effective year built of 1959. It has 23 suites with 20 outdoor parking. It is zoned as residential 2-family with a land area of 17,848 square feet, a planned area of 7,420 square feet, basement area of 7,420 square feet, and a gross floor area of 22,260 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 23 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $883.04. The gross $243,719. It has a vacancy rate of 3.2% or $7,799. That's an effective gross income of $235,920. That's an expense ratio of 52.25% or $100,268. The net operating income comes down to $112,652, applying the capitalization rate of 5.75%. The capitalized income is $1,959,165 or $1,959,000 rounded. On page 5 are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 765 Ellis Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $884. The next one is located at 209 4B Street. That's per unit of $880. The third one is located at 33 Balmoral Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,096. And the last one is located at 301 Victor Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $900. Page 6 is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. Page capitalization rate evidence. On pages 9 up to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense information for the subject property, and that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Rocky, any questions?
Yeah, but just on page 4 again, this is all done by the model.
Yes, these are all model-derived parameters.
No new questions. Thank you.
Richard, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Robert, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
If there's, we'll move on then to your presentation. Mr. Neufeld?
Hey, 1095 is the matching building next door, 1099 will come up next. They're run as a one economic unit, so the statements provided, and I haven't looked ahead, maybe they'll prove me to be wrong, but generally over the years, they have just combined the statements and divided by 2 because a lot of the costs can't be done separately. The property has, as you can see, the 3-year income rising from 223 to 233. So that's $10,000 over the 3-year period. So that is above our RTB, and that there are some above guideline rent increases that were allowed. As always, we look at stabilizing the statements, and we've stabilized it at expenses at the last year at 127,000. And the reason, one of these things, learning how to read statements, so this one is pointed out as quite obvious. In 2018, they had some high expenses. These are repairs, not improvements. And as a result, they got a permission for an increase above the guideline the following year. So it's quite logical to read these statements. And in this case, we decided to use 2020 as our valuation because of those reasons. So we occasionally think these things through. So we have 106,000 in NOI, differs from the assessors by 6,000, but it's real. That's the actual. We're using a cap rate of 6%. Nothing spectacular different with this than anything we've heard today. It's kind of short on the parking size. It's not new. It's it's a bit smaller at only 23 units. I've always said the optimal is 30 plus because of the relationship between fixed costs and variable costs. And again, conforming very nicely to the Collier's cap rate calculation. This would be a C building. So outside the A's and B's we have listed, but 6% is our range, 5 to 6% or higher, and we peg this one at 6%. So we follow our brokerage department who sell these properties, and in the break, I guess maybe it's too bad. I was going to get Brian to come in here and talk about cap rates, but he's the guy who sells our apartments at Collier's. It's not someone sitting in a room with a pile of papers. It's a guy who goes out and looks at the apartments and values and prices them and sells them. That's what we do for a living. Thank you.
Ryan, any questions?
I have no new questions, Mr. Chair.
Richard, any questions?
No questions.
Robert,
No questions. Too.
anything in summation, gentlemen?
Nothing.
I have none.
Okay, that'll conclude that matter. We'll move on to the next property, which is the sister, as you called it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me know if
When you are ready.
okay.
Yep, you're ready.
Next property has a file number of 22-2707. The roll number is 13012413300. The property is located at 1099 Wolver Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $1,959,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 2 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1959. It has 23 suites with 20 outdoor parking. It is zoned as a residential 2 family with land area of 17,755, a planned area of 7,420 square feet, a basement area of 7,420 square feet, and a gross floor area of 260 square feet. On page 3 is the photo of the subject
Ryan,
property.
can I stop you for 1 second, Ryan? Are there any changes in the presentation between the previous one and this one? It looks like it's matched it right on the money.
It looks like, Mr. Chair, yes.
So you're just going to repeat everything from the first one, right?
Let me just double check on that. I believe so, Mr. Chair, yes. And even the
looking at
rent
the
comparables and the maps and all that.
Right. If everybody's good with that, we'll consider his first statements made at the previous one on this one. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
I'm good with it.
I'm
Everybody's
okay
good?
with it.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to questions. Rocky, you probably got the same question.
Got nothing. It's the same as before.
David and Ash?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nothing in summation, gentlemen?
Nothing.
Any questions from my
Summation.
panel members?
Nothing. Thank you.
No
Thank
question.
you. No more questions.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next one.
Sorry,
30.
I didn't want to skip entirely my presentation. There was just one point
Oh.
I was going to make here.
Okay,
Earlier, I said I thought they had averaged them out. They didn't. It looks like they're running separate income and expense. This one is just has a bit worse of an experience, but shows the same trends and everything. And whatever the board decides, it should probably be the same number. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. You haven't got any questions to that, do you, Ryan?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I do believe my colleagues said they were done. So we'll move on to the next one at 36 Navy Way. When you're ready, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Here's a file number of 22-2602. It has a roll number of 120925100. The property is located at 36 Navy Way. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value is $1,640,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with a liable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1926. It has 29 suites with 22 outdoor parking. It is zoned as downtown living with land area of 18,743 square feet, a planned area of 5,464 square feet, a basement area of 5,464 square feet, area of 21,856 square feet. On page 3 is the photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 29 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $608.75. The gross potential rent is $211,845. The vacancy rate 1% or $9,957. The effective gross income is $201,888. The expense ratio for the property is 57.75% or $116,590. The net operating income comes down to $85,298. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.2%, the capitalized income is $1,640,346 or $1,640,000 rounded. Page 5 are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 52 Edmonton Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $889. The second one is located at 26 Hargrave Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $856. The third one is located at 172 Edmonton Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $708. And the last one is located at 340 Bond Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $602. Next page has the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Page 7 is the cap rate chart, and on page 8 is the cap rate evidence. Beginning of page 9 to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Yes. Page 4 by the model.
Yes, they're all model parameters.
So I'm making notes from today's hearings, and the two properties with the lowest cap rates were built in 1926 and 1928. Do you think that might be an error in the model somewhere?
I'm not sure. What was that again? I'm sorry.
1920, this one, 1926 construction, 5.2%. And the ones we've heard earlier today, built in the 50s, were higher cap rates. Wouldn't you expect to see the opposite?
I'm just looking at this one. Well, there could be a lot of other factors, not just age, that the model is considering when it comes to cap rate.
You haven't presented any of those other factors as evidence, have you?
No, I don't have those information with me.
Okay, now, do you, I'm just, sorry, I was just wanted to see something here. Okay. You're aware that this property shares its parking lot with the neighboring property, which is going to be heard shortly, 303 Assiniboine?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Richard, any questions?
None, thank you.
Robert, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I've got no questions. Mr. Neufeld, on with your presentation, please.
Yes, thank you. So you can see our number on NOI is higher than the model, and it's for a very good reason. If you look at the picture on page 1, there's 3 parcels. So the 36 Navy is the northern parcel marked with the red dot. Then there's a parking lot at 0 Navy, and then there's 303 Assiniboine. So the revenue for parking for the 2 lots will go to whoever's renting them, and mostly it's the people at 36 Navy. However, the costs for the lot get absorbed into separate rolls, one 0 Navy, and the other is for 303 Assiniboine. So what we when they're heard together, that's why what's skewing the numbers off, because what we're missing here is utilities and taxes for 0 Navy, which is why our NOI is showing higher. So when whatever judgment you make, I just ask that you bear that in mind with the 303 Assiniboine numbers, which are coming up shortly. You could, if you want to simplify that, use the assessor's NOI, that's fine, but I'm trying to present a truthful indication of the property. And you can see from the performance that there's in this property, it's just plugging along as at its age of, how old is that? 96 years. Wow. So it's just plugging along, performing at that rate. We've capped it at 7.25. And some of the interesting issues about this one, which differ, is the worst thing about this is looking at the overhead. Biggest complaint is Smith Street. Winnipeg's only version of a downtown freeway. It's horrible for noise, and it picks it up. So they do have problems. They're not going to get great rents for that corner. So that's the one big downside. And then lately, there's been a lot of construction, but what they've done on the traffic flows at this intersection is they've went to a series of one-ways. It's not a big deal, but the access is gotten worse. The parking stalls, they still don't have enough, even with their extra lot for all the units. These are all small factors. Obviously, the major factor will be the year built, 1926, quality and condition. I've been in there several times, and like most properties of its vintage, they try to maintain as best they can. But if you've got a wooden balustrade and any sort of wood paneling, you're not getting that stuff anymore. And it's the real problem is replacing with something, and that's our concern with the quality issues and the condition issues. You just can't get the replacement stuff to make it look original, so it ends up being cosmetically a bit of a hybrid, and straying to less aesthetic qualities. In any event, it's old. It's been performing along for 90 years, and hopefully it's got a few more years left. And 7.25, I think, is a very fair rate. Thank you.
Ryan, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Richard, any questions?
None, thank you.
Robert,
No questions, thank you.
anything in summation, gentlemen?
I have none.
Rocky?
I do. There is a Zero Navy, which is their parking lot. Can I just go ahead? I want to just look at 303 at Assiniboine. I just want to see if we've accounted for it. Yes, we have. Thank you. No, nothing else.
Thank you. Let's move over to 303 Assiniboine then, shall we?
I landed on our tree. Oh, I see it.
303 Assiniboine, when you are ready, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next property has a file number of 22-1903. It is located at 303 Assiniboine Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $2,677,000. It's classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 3 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1929. It has 34 suites, and it is zoned as downtown living with land area of 9,201 square feet, a plan area of 7,500 feet, a basement area of 7,507 square feet, a total gross floor area of 30,028 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. There are 34 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $742.91. The gross potential rent is $303,107, has a vacancy rate of 4.7% or $14,246. Has an effective gross income of $208,861. The expense ratio is 50.88% or $146,972. The net operating income comes down to $141,889. Applying the 5.3% cap rate, the capitalized income is $2,677,151 or $2,677,000 rounded. On next page, page 5, are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 52 Edmonton Street. The average monthly rent per unit is $889. The second one is located at 26 Hargrave Street. Average monthly rent per unit is $856. Third one is located at 172 Edmonton Street. The average monthly rent per unit is $708. And the last one is located at 340 Vaughan. The average monthly rent per unit is $602. On page 6 is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Page 7 is the cap rate chart, and page 8 is the cap rate evidence. And beginning of page 9 to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Newfield, any questions?
Yes, page 4, that's by the model.
That's correct.
Same question as before. We have 1929 construction and we have a lower cap rate than the 1950s buildings earlier. Any explanation?
Same answer. It's a model derived cap rate.
That's fine. And did you look at the actual income and expenses? You put them here.
It's here. It's attached in here.
Yeah, so they're showing the one you've got is $14,000 in net operating income, fairly high maintenance and repair. No weight given to that then?
I went with the model on this one.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Richard, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Robert, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, page 9, the statement that Mr. Newfeld referred to. The NOI is at 147,000 and change, 147.54.
No, it's 14,000.
$14,000. Oh, their NOI is at 14,000.
Yeah.
I thought it was awful close to his number.
Yeah, it's so good.
754. Yeah. I moved my, okay. Trying to see what their total expenses were over 291,000. Some of that must have been in renovations. I'll leave it till Mr. Newfeld makes his presentation. I've got no further questions, Ryan. It's okay. Mr. Newfeld?
No, thank you. No, I'll just address that right away. No, it's not renovations. This building has been horrible on expenses. I've got them in front of me going back years, and it's just high repairs and maintenance. Now, the 3 years we've shown you are characterized at the bottom of page 1, where we have the expenses, repair and maintenance, and we have done some adjustments. But it's always been extremely high. There's nothing in there to demonstrate any sort of renovation. And unlike, you know, I was showing you, this is the same owner that I showed you, for example, the Wolver properties that showed a progression. There was some input of expenses. There's some above guideline increases. If you look at the revenue on this building, there is no matching revenue increase whatsoever. As a matter of fact, there were revenue decreases. This is just a building that is total money pit, and it has been since I've worked for them in 2008. It's expensive to maintain. It's a nice looking property, and it's great that they're doing this to preserve the look of these buildings. But you know, it's 93 years old, and it costs money to keep it working. And they're actually earning a very, very low return on their income, but it is generating a positive cash flow. And you know, I would give the company for this, Smith, full credit for what they do, because it's not all about jack the revenue up and take a mortgage on it and everything else. This would never even get a mortgage, because it's generating a few $1,000s a year, but they keep it going. And I think that, like I said, they deserve credit for what they do for our multifamily properties in Winnipeg. Not a moneymaker, but what we have done is we've stabilized this somewhat at $1,800 a unit. This is doesn't represent the true history, but for ad valorem taxation, we have to do something. And this is our best, it's still missing the mark, but you can see 63% expense ratio by adjusting all the R&M from the actuals, which were as high as 5,000 a unit down to 1,800 a unit. I can't think of any other way that this is artificially too high. But we are trying to make an effort here to at least establish a fairly fair tax rate. So when in doing so, we end up with what we used is this stabilized expense rate, and our NOI comes to 100,000. Now, there is actually one other reason why the expenses are higher, and it's not R&M. What I said earlier on Navy Way. So Navy gets gets their share of the revenue from the lot, and that the lots, the address is 0 Navy and the red dot, and it's the one that's immediately north, separate title, shared by the two buildings. So any revenue goes to the tenant, it goes to the building the tenant is in. So they pretty much split the revenue from the lots. But all the expenses, the meters, are in 303 Assiniboine. I've gone out there in the dead of winter because we had this big argument with the assessor. There is one meter, and I traced the wires back from the parking row and then 0 Navy. They're right on the wall of 303 Assiniboine. They go into their meter. The taxes are on 303 Assiniboine's statement. So if you were to look at their statement on page 3, you'll see property taxes 28,333. That's approximately an approximate assessment of 2.1 million, which equals last year's assessment plus the assessment for 0 Navy. So that's why this is expensing low. Now, that's why the three properties have to be looked at as one economic unit. 36 Navy's coming out ahead of this, looking like a more profitable building. 303 Assiniboine is not. Now, in stabilizing it, what we want to do is all the income and expenses have been accounted for in the two buildings. And so the total of the three assessments should be the total of based on the total cumulative income. And what we've done in this case is just subtracted the assessment of 0 Navy, which is 413,000 from the total. Now, that total could be subtracted partially from 36 Navy, partially from 303 Assiniboine, or all from one. It doesn't matter, but the revenue and expenses are accounted for in the statements. The hearing for 0 Navy is on January 11th. So by that time that rolls around, whatever happens here with these ones, we will definitely make sure that there's no double dipping by the assessor on revenue and expenses. That was our primary goal here. So that like I said, those are the two things with the expenses that would skew it off. It is a separate matter from the repair and maintenance issue, except for repair and maintenance on the parking lot, which they don't have that breakdown number at all. I think this is as pretty much as fair as we can do, and the cap rate on this one is slightly better than 36 Navy, and I think in my mind I see it as having slightly better access, slightly less noise, 3 years newer, and it's got a better unit mix, I think. That's about it. That's my presentation. 1,022,000.
Do you have any questions, Ryan?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Richard?
I have none, thank you.
Robert?
No questions, thank you.
Well, I must be the only one that's not understanding $413,000. I guess you're gonna have to walk me through that again, Mr. New.
Sure, no problem.
Where's the 413 coming from?
That's the assessment of 0 Navy. That's the parking lot. that's on the picture with the red dot. It's a separately titled roll immediately north of the subject, and you can see on it, it's one row of parking. There's 9 cars on it. I guess there's room for about 13. And so it's the parking lot. It's classed residential. It just for some reason it's on a separate roll. Perhaps it should have been amalgamated. But as I said, 36 Navy, which is cropped out of the picture, but it's at the top of our picture. 0 Navy, which is the lot, and 303 Assiniboine are all one economic unit.
But if
So what we're saying is, if we total up all of the revenue and expenses from both rolls, we had calculated 108,500 for 36 Navy and 100,435 for 303 Assiniboine. So the total would be about $209,000. That's the income for all 3 rolls, and capitalized at 7.25. That should be the number that should be allocated to all of them. Now, you don't have the power to change the value of the roll. So whatever your number comes up with, whether it takes the roll into account, if it takes the roll into account, when the hearing comes up for it on January 11th, we withdraw the appeal. If it doesn't, we'll go ahead with the appeal, and we'll see after it's all settled, what is the total number. I would like it to be approximately, taking both of them, about all 3 of them, yes, 2.9 million approximately. And the way we had it there is 1.5 million on 36 Navy. For 303 Assiniboine, if you change it to 1,022,000, we withdraw our appeal of 413,000 on 0 Navy. If you don't, if they say you make it 1,434,000, then we're going to ask 0 Navy to be $1. We've been doing this for so long; it's just like second nature here, and I understand it's not a cut and dried one roll, one value issue, but they did this in the 20s, so you can't make people change their business style because it's inconvenient for the assessment department.
Okay, leave it with us and see what we do with that one.
Okay.
Anything in summation?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
None for you, Rocky?
No, thanks.
You're good?
I think
Okay, let's move on to 380 Assiniboine. $380. Just 1 second, gentlemen. I just got to put you on pause for a second here. Thank you. Gentlemen, Ryan, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next property has a file number of 22-1907. It has a roll number of 1209271200. The property is located at 380 Assiniboine Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $2,878,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable.
Gentlemen, I'm just going to put you on pause for a minute, please. Thank you, gentlemen. Just had to deal with a little family issue. Let's move ahead, please.
And the property
back.
is sorry. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 3 stories, and actually built of 1931. It has 44 suites with 9 outdoor parking. It is owned as downtown living with a land area of 17,438 square feet, a planned area of 11,050 square feet, a basement area of 11,050 square feet, a gross floor area of 44,200 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 44 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $755. The gross potential rent for the property is $398,656. That's a vacancy rate of 4.7% or $18,737. The effective gross income is $379,909. The expense ratio is 59.47%, which is $225,938. The net operating income comes down to $143,981. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.35%, the capitalized income is $2,878,150 or $2,878,000 rounded. On page 5 are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 52 Edmonton Street. There's an average month of $889. The second one is located at 26 Hargrave Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $856. The third one is located at 172 Edmonton Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $708. And the fourth one, 41 Street, has an average monthly rent per unit of $602. On page 6 is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. Beginning of page 9 to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense information. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Just the first, of course, this workup was done by the model.
Yes, it is modeled derived parameter.
Now on page 3, you've got this picture, and I just want to make sure we're looking at the right property. Is it the property in the middle?
Yeah, I think the one with the white spot or white dot right there, and the red dot.
Okay, I see it there. And so the building immediately to its right, that's a new build construction, apartment construction.
Looks newer, but I'm not sure how new it is.
Okay, well, it's I believe that this is the one that started construction, and then the bank had to take it over at some point. You happen to know the date? No. Okay, that's fine. I'll deal with that. And the actual statements, I note you put them in on page 9. They're showing in this particular year an NOI of 102,000. I guess like the other properties, you reported it but did not take it into account. Is that correct?
No, I did not. I went with the model on this one.
And the model 1931 construction, again, a low cap rate of 5.35%. Nothing, no reason. Same as the question before, lower than the 1950s properties? You don't have a reason for it, or probably can't give us one, fair to say?
Same answer as previous.
Okay, yeah, no, I just wanted it on the record. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. Thank you. That was my questions.
Richard, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Robert, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I've got no questions. Rocky, on with your presentation, please.
The building, there's actually a curious connection to the new construction next door. That building went up. I think they lost their funding halfway through, and the bank had to take it over and finish it. But I was involved in this area, and when 390 went to be constructed and they started excavating, they found that foundations for the neighboring buildings had strayed into their titled area. Now, because it was 85 years prior at the time, the concept of prescriptive easements came into effect. But the whole construction on the site was a major problem for these properties. Now, if you look at page 1, the revenue and expenses, and you'll note that in 2018 the revenue was 330,000. So they had a lot of blockages to the site, but they also had some major foundation repairs that they did in 2017, almost $300,000. Now, some of it was due to their location on the riverbank, because when the water levels got high, the foundation gets a little loose. And I guess, there's no proof of anything, but they like to blame the project next door for making it happen. But regardless, they had to spend some money on some stabilization. So you won't see that in the expenses because it was the prior year. But as a result, they did get an above guideline increase, and you can see that the revenue went up. From 18 to 19, it was mostly a case of stabilizing the vacancies, because during construction they lost some tenants and nobody wanted to move next to this big noisy project. And then later on they picked up above guideline increases. So on that basis, the 398,000 is a good number for their gross revenue, and the expenses don't need any stabilization because they all came after the 300,000 they spent in 2017. So we averaged those out to 275,000, and we get an NOI of 122,000, which is higher than any of the 3 years that they actually claim. But it shows coming through a bad time. And this is the standard way you would see a evaluation done out, and it fits that. The circumstances fit the application of this model: last year of income, average expenses. In terms of capitalization, we were a little bit less harsh on it than the last 2 buildings. It river location rather than freeway location, obviously, is the major issue. The only concern on the river is the future costs of stabilization, which, I mean, they're ongoing. And some years it can be nothing more than adding more soil that's eroded away. In some years they've generally every 3rd, 4th year they've got to replace paving, and then there was the big expense in 2017. Taking all that into account, it was better than the other 2, and 6.75% would be our estimate for a value of $1,812,000. And as to what previous year's assessments are, I mean, previous year is a previous year. I'm fairly sure we've got this one under appeal at the municipal board, and they haven't resolved anything yet. I just want to know this myself for sure. 380 is, oh, that's not the right number. I see. Never mind, that's not the right assessment from the previous year. It had changed, and whoever did this hadn't updated the lower number. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Ryan, questions?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Richard,
I have none, thank you.
Robert,
No questions, thank you.
the Rocky, the bank stabilization, isn't this where the sidewalk is actually running behind that building now? Isn't
Yeah,
there a walkway behind it?
yeah. I would call it
The bank's been stabilized.
a pedestrian puddleway. It's always submerged. Yes.
But the bank has been stabilized there.
No. Well, the lower level of the bank has that holds the walkway in place, but this is always underwater. So the water gets up past the walkway and into the ground and destabilizes the property owners' buildings.
Yeah.
I can't remember a single time it's been below water every time I go by, but that's the issue.
Okay. Very good. I got no further questions. Anything in summation from either of you?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Is this our last
Rocky?
one? Is this our last one?
It is the last one.
Oh, then just briefly in summation for all of them, we're using real cap rates from real sales because we sell real buildings. And I think there's some problems with the model the assessor uses. I've tried to point them out to you about some of the errors that they use in their stabilization that I've been aware of. I would certainly like to have seen their workups on the ones they brought forward so we could fully review them. They insert Collier's cap rates, but then they go to ignore them. So don't insert our cap rates or rely on them, but don't do both. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've heard all the items scheduled for this hearing, and this meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thanks.